What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JAR. JAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. It's our weekly show where we review the magic stories as they're posted on Wizards' website. This week, we have Glimpse the Far Side of the Sun by the R&D Narrative team. It's the second of 5 stories in the Rivals of Ixalan set of stories to finish off the block. My quick review at the top of this one is I did not hate this one. I don't think it was as good as last week by any means, but I thought it was fine, right? I didn't think it was amazing. I didn't really have any strong opinions one way or another. I don't know what you thought.
I thought this is my kind of story.
Fair enough. There was a lot of payoff this week, which I will say is important and relevant. So if you've been following along, it's definitely one not to miss. But if you're new, this isn't really the one for you to start on.
Yeah,
probably last week's at least.
Yeah.
So that's our quick review at the beginning, just to let you know if you have not been reading along with the stories, we recommend that you go do that before coming here. As we always say, we review, we do not summarize.
Yes.
On to the full review itself, though. This was good. I think it actually this story fixed one of the issues, that we had with last week's story, which was there was that very brief part in the beginning about Kumena, and then they went on to the much longer part about Vraska, or focusing on Vraska. And my point was, what the hell was the point of Kumena being in there? Because the Vraska part was just so long that, like, why throw that random 2 or 3 paragraph Kumena thing in there? And I could be wrong. It might have been 6 paragraphs, but it felt like such a short thing for Kumena. And so in this story, they gave us Huatli, which also, if you've been following along with JAR, the first time we saw Huatli, and really the last time I think we saw a story from her perspective, was the second story from regular Ixalan block, after Jace Alone, A Question of Confidence, I believe was the name of that story. And we were not fans. It was boring, it was repetitive, and it was not really a good way to introduce a new planeswalker. And in this one, I think they really improved upon Huatli.
Yeah, I think Huatli was almost interesting in this one.
Well, and I think that they gave us Huatli alongside Angrath, right? Huatli was kind of interesting alongside Tishana as well. So it seems like you just need a good pairing for Huatli to be interesting. So pairing her with Angrath was good because you kind of have this gruff Minotaur dad, right? And this young, inexperienced but cocky girl. And Angrath was really the guy to kind of put her in her place every once in a while when she was kind of getting a little too big for her britches.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to note was Huatli even mentions at one point, I mean, first of all, the story starts with Huatli as a child. So we get to see Huatli as a child and kind of her mannerisms as a child and the way that she thinks and speaks and etc. and her inquisitive childlike nature. And then we see her as an adult and not a whole ton has changed, right? She seemed very confident as a kid for why she was saying the things that she was and why she should be allowed to ask those questions of the priest, for example, in the flashback. And now she's asking them of Angrath. Angrath being a father figure. We don't know anything, at least that I recall. I might have forgotten something from A Question of Confidence, but I do not recall anything about Huatli's parental situation, whether she has them, whether they're alive, whether they're dead, whether she was an orphan. I don't recall hearing that information, which, again, if it was presented in A Question of Confidence, could go to kind of the forgettableness, if that's a word, of that story. I don't know what your...
Yeah, I don't care about any of this.
The part that she liked was the Jace part. We'll get to that in a second. But I do want to talk about the beginning part because it was relevant, I think. But I was going to save this for the end, but I think we can throw it in here so we can close with the Jace stuff. we have been very critical, again, for those of you that might be new, Amy and I have been very critical of a story, an article that was posted following the Ixalan stories of the top 10 burning questions that you have following the Ixalan stories. We were critical of them because the real answer to the majority of those questions was, hey, Rivals of Ixalan is a thing, and when those stories come out, you'll have the answers to those questions. And so sometimes the people from the R&D team were being kind of cagey in their responses, the R&D narrative team, I should specify, but they were being somewhat cagey in their responses that could have just been boiled down to wait for the Rivals of Ixalan stories. But the one piece of information, you remember, that we were given in that upset me a lot was the Angrath origins information. The background information of him as a father. Him having the fact that he likes to planeswalk. And when he goes to different places, he brings back gifts for his daughters. And that he's trapped on Ixalan now, having planeswalked there. And so he's just trying to get back to his kids. Now, in this story, we find out that
They thought he had just gone for cigarettes.
Milk and cigarettes. And just never come back again. Classic.
Yeah.
But he's been gone for 14 years, we find out in this story.
Worst dad ever.
Crazy. 14 years, that's crazy. Now, I don't fully understand the Minotaur aging process, so it's totally possible that his children could still be children when he gets back. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Here, as human beings, even if your kids were like 2 when you left, now they're 16 when you get back home 14 years later. That is a huge jump in time. So they will have really grown their entire lives. Again, if human timeline or aging means anything here,
right.
They will have grown so much that he won't necessarily be coming back to the same people any longer. But the main reason I bring it up is because I would have really loved to have seen that in a story. Now, Angrath kind of mentions at one point to Huatli, I need to get back to my daughters. Sure, I don't expect him, Angrath as a character from what we've seen, to then go into his backstory with Huatli, because that's not the kind of guy he is, and that's not the kind of relationship he has with Huatli. But Huatli didn't tell Angrath about her past, of her as a child being inquisitive. We saw that in a flashback. So it means that it's not impossible for us to see flashbacks of these new characters, these new planeswalkers. So how about you give us an Angrath flashback? Why not give us that? Give us a moment of him and his children, of him returning from a planeswalk and saying, you guys know I always come back and give you gifts. Here you go. Something like that. Why did it have to be revealed as the answer to a question, as a matter-of-fact information dump? That was disappointing. I know I'm not talking about this current story as much, and I apologize for that, but it's something that it's an Arlen Cord type situation all over again, and that is going way back in the annals of JAR if you want to hear me talk about Arlen Cord, but
no one does.
Because I do it all the time. Arlen Cord was an issue, right? She wasn't given to us. She wasn't given the time. She wasn't given the appropriate amount of story time. And I'm... Story time. I wish. But that seems to be, and there are still 3 more stories left, so I'll take it back if I'm wrong, but that seems to be what they're doing with Angrath now as well. Is giving us the bare minimum of Angrath. They gave us his backstory as a throwaway 2-sentence response to a question about him, and that's all you're going to get, even though he is a Planeswalker card in the set. But
I have to say I don't care.
You don't care?
The story's good. And what was actually in it, definitely worth it.
True.
So...
And you got to see a lot of...
Reading this story, I don't care.
Okay. All right. I very much care. I clearly do, only because I am not one of those people who is very adamant about get rid of the Gatewatch, I don't want to see them anymore, stop showing us the same 5 characters, because I appreciate the character development that gets to be given to us of the Gatewatch, and we'll talk about that with Jace in a couple of minutes here, because that's a big deal.
Yes.
That's what Amy liked, if you didn't get that. And we will get to Amy for that, because I want to hear your opinions on that as well. But it also means give us new characters. And when you give us those new characters, flesh them out. They did an amazing job of that in Amonkhet, with secondary and even tertiary characters being characters that we loved and cared about, even if it was just for one story. Sure, shameless plug, but go check out our top 10 list that we did. We talk about that in much more detail. But why not be able to do it here? It's not like you're like reverting back.
Matter.
But I guess I'm just saying that they've shown that it does to them, because they did it with Amonkhet. If it didn't matter at all, then don't give us the Amonkhet backstories or character development.
Those were important to the overall story. And maybe Angrath's just isn't for this. Maybe at some point we'll come back to him when his story becomes important for the overall story, but maybe we're just not at that point.
I hope, because he seems cool. I'd love to know more about him. He even mentions, I think at one point, he says to Huatli that his daughters would have drank her blood or something. Didn't he say that? That was like a really...
her emperor.
Yes, the blood of her emperor, that's correct. Thank you. That was a cool line. I want to know... Yeah, I want to know more about that. That seems awesome.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Anyway, so we can move away from Huatli and Angrath, right? They had really cool interactive moments between the two. I liked their banter back and forth. I thought it was cool. Now, on to the part that Amy cares more about, and maybe all of you do as well. Maybe you all thought that the Huatli/Angrath portion was kind of a throwaway as well, although like I said, I appreciated it.
Well, I liked it as you were reading it, but then it got to the good part.
Well, I was going to say, it's no, that's fair, right? That's an opinion. That's important to discuss, because it's the same thing that they did last week. They had the secondary characters at the beginning and then cut to the main characters of Jace and Vraska. They did that last week, now they're doing it this week, but this week they gave those secondary characters more time, but I guess in this case you still weren't as impressed. Okay, so on to the Jace and Vraska portion. There was a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
I do just want to throw in here, though, that we did meet Saint Elenda as well with the Angrath and Huatli section, and I thought that it was...
part was cool.
Well, yes, and I thought it was really interesting that Huatli mentioning to Saint Elenda, like, hey, these people, your Legion of Dusk... She was kind of pissed off. She's like, yeah, right. Your Legion of Dusk is going to be what you say they are, and calm and, coming to collect something that's theirs and not being ostentatious about it. And Saint Elenda seems to be upset.
I loved that.
She's mad at the vampires. And we'll see what happens with that, because she seems to have reappeared because Vraska has been found. She kind of pulls the stone slab aside and exits the temple area, or whatever you want to call it, and is now kind of unleashed upon the world. So now we get to see how the Saint Elenda, that by Angrath's own admission, the vampires talk about all the time.
Yeah.
And we've seen that too in the stories, that they talk about her frequently.
Yeah.
When she comes back, let's see how these vampires react.
Yeah.
And we'll see...
And we'll see how she reacts to them, because...
Correct.
It seems like she's not too happy about the way they've been acting.
Yes, but I think it would be actually kind of cool to see Vona come across Saint Elenda, because Vona is very much anti-establishment vampire.
Yes.
As opposed to Maverick Fane, who's like, God bless the church and the vampires and we love everything. So he may just bow, right, in supplication.
It's
but
Santa Linda, he might just faint.
Right, but Vona may be like, screw you, lady, where have you been? And actually try to combat her. So that will be an interesting situation. But we will have to wait for that. Like I said, we've still got 3 more stories, so looking forward to that. And 2 more story spotlights, because, spoilers, I guess, there was no story spotlight in this one, but there are only 3 total and there are 5 stories, so it makes sense that at least 2 of the stories would not have a story spotlight as part of them. So, but, as I said, or as Amy mentioned as well, now we are moving back to, now we are moving back to, I just keep gesturing at you. Now,
just like hitting into me, and it's a bit much.
Now we are moving back to Jace and Vraska. And it's literally right where we left off. Whereas with Angrath and Huatli, it started with them as Vraska rose from the ground, which is kind of going back in time a little bit, at least based on where we last left Jace and Vraska.
Right.
Now we have Jace and Vraska climbing those stairs, which is where we left them off at the end of the last story. They're climbing the stairs, Jace is thinking about his memories, and we get a lot of information from Jace's memories here. So good. And it was, what a great way of doing it, because, sure, it's a lot of kind of background information that you could think, first of all, yes, the stairs are a lot. There were a lot of stairs, and so you could kill time in the story by saying, and then they walked up the stairs, and now they're at the top of the stairs. But instead, during that time, they focused on Jace's thoughts. That makes sense. Jace talks about the memories that are flooding back. We get further confirmation that he does not fully remember his final time on Amonkhet with the Hour of Devastation.
Right.
He only vaguely remembers because the golden staircase and the golden spires of Vraska are what clue him into a gold dragon that he tries to read the mind of, and he remembers Nicol Bolas. But then
he doesn't remember that his name is Nicol Bolas.
Correct. He just remembers a gold dragon. He doesn't remember the names of his friends past Liliana either, seemingly, because he says, I remember a gold dragon, friends in trouble. Right? He doesn't talk about the Gatewatch. He doesn't talk about any of these things.
He does mention Liliana's crocodile thing.
Yes, so that's fair.
Alligator.
I think it was crocodile. I don't remember now.
Crocodile thing.
Sure.
So he remembers that.
True. So he doesn't.
And he remembers that was Liliana as well.
Yes.
So, he's got some pieces there.
Yes. And speaking of Liliana, since you brought her up, and I know this is one of your preferred topics as well when it comes to Jace, Jace actually started comparing Liliana to Vraska in this one.
Gee, it's almost like we had already done that.
Well, yes, but he's doing it in his mind. He's saying, wow, she's telling me that I'm incredible, she being Vraska. Liliana would never have told me that I was incredible. She would have made some snide comment or backhanded remark or whatever.
And the thing is, that means something because he realizes that Liliana would never do that for him, but it also means something because we get to kind of learn how much respect he has for Vraska.
Yes.
Like what high regard he holds her in, that we really didn't get a true sense of totally before this story, I feel like.
No, that's fair. Absolutely. Because everything post him getting his memories back has been, up to this story, has been Vraska. It was all told from her perspective. So he wasn't verbally saying it, but now we're in his head as well to get that background information. And his feelings on the matter, even after remembering that she is an assassin and he was, an enemy of hers, or vice versa, and etc. So, but in Jace recalling those memories, we get big information.
Juicy stuff.
Very juicy stuff, and very important stuff that I'm sure will follow in the stories, and by stories I mean sets and blocks to come, not just the next 3 in Rivals of Ixalan.
Yeah.
Jace, in regaining his memories, thinks back to Ugin. And as we know, right, if you've been reading the stories, Jace met with Ugin on Zendikar. He was talking to him in trying to combat the Eldrazi and what can I do and blah, blah, blah. Finds out about the Hedrons and things like that. But there was a discussion. And it may not be that discussion that I just referenced, but it may be that discussion. We don't know yet. But there was a discussion, a memory that Jace has of Ugin, where while trying to access that memory, he recalls, or he notices what he calls like a tripwire. And that tripwire, Jace realizes, is such that if someone were to attempt to access the memory of Jace meeting with Ugin, that memory would get fuzzy and become hard to recognize, and Jace would be compelled to planeswalk away, but not to just any location, specifically to Ixalan. Now, Jace points out, and I tend to agree with this assessment on Jace's part, is that it seems to be that was to have Jace act as a lure for whatever entity was, and this is my assessment of it, but it would be like to lure that entity, whatever entity could possibly be powerful enough to subvert Jace's mind magic, right? One of the most powerful telepaths in the multiverse. Anything that could subvert his mental magic would be something that Ugin, another very powerful ancient planeswalker, may not want to have just loose in the multiverse, and so he may want to attempt to have them follow Jace and trap them on Ixalan with the Immortal Sun not allowing anyone to planeswalk away. That's my assessment of it. And that was...
Or maybe Azor is going to fight it.
That seems like a bad idea.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't either. You mean him meaning Bolas, not Jace?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a bad idea.
Why?
Because Jace alone was able to take out Alhammaret. Not easily, mind you, but still was able to take out Alhammaret. Jace compares Alhammaret, or compares Azor in this story, to Alhammaret.
Yeah, but he doesn't know anything about him.
True.
Maybe he is better than Alhammaret.
Maybe, but is he 5 times better than Alhammaret?
I don't know.
Because, well, again, the reason... I don't actually need you to answer that question. The reason I ask it is because if you compare Jace's ability to fight Alhammaret with Jace's ability to fight Nicol Bolas, Jace was able to take out Alhammaret. It kind of took all of what he was, but I'm referencing the fact that it took Jace and 4 other members of the Gatewatch to get their asses kicked still by Nicol Bolas. So I still don't think that Azor is 5 times more powerful than Alhammaret, and if he's not, then he's nowhere near Bolas.
No.
That's my thought.
We'll find out.
True. Hopefully we'll find out Ugin's reasoning, and it'll be interesting to see whether Jace confronts Ugin angrily or inquisitively. Because the other thing that I wrote down here is, and this is, again, a part that Amy enjoys. Amy, can you maybe give us, for those of us that may not be familiar, can you give us your opinions on old Jace?
Boring. Emo. That's pretty much it.
There are a lot of people out there who I think would agree with you, but even be more...
Whiny.
Okay. I think there are people out there who would definitely agree with you, but I think they would be even more angry, right, with his character and his character development than you are, right? You've just given your opinion, and those are some harsh opinions, but I don't think they're
not.
invalid. I don't think they're wrong to think that way. I don't fully go that far. I can agree that he can be a little stale, but here, and I said this originally, that my assessment of the Hour of Devastation story, where Bolas fights the Gatewatch, scatters them all in 5 different directions, and now we are getting stories with only one of them as opposed to all 5. My point was that this was a way for R&D, the narrative team, whatever you want to call them, to fix the issue that a lot of readers were having with the Gatewatch stories, which was get them the hell out of here. Why are these the only 5 characters that we're hearing about? Give us new characters. From a Magic the Gathering card game perspective, give us new planeswalkers. I don't need 6 Nissas legal and standard at the same time.
No one needs that.
Despite how much Amy loves Nissa.
I'm wearing my Nissa necklace. Okay? I love her, but no one needs 6 legal Nissas in standard. In standard?
Standard, yeah, standard.
All of them in standard.
Not currently, but there was a time where there were six different Nissas legal and standard.
Why? Why on earth?
I don't know.
Why in the multiverse?
Wow. Nicely done. That's 24 available copies of Nissa in a 60-card deck.
Okay, that's... no.
Well, that deck is probably awful. I don't play Constructed that much, but I know that much.
Now you're getting insulting.
Yeah, sure. Insulting. Anyway.
This is wonderful.
Sure, she is. She's just the best. She's not a bad character. Obviously, I'm kidding. But I think that the Hour of Devastation was a way for R&D to fix that, to help put the minds of their readers and their fans and their critics at ease, because they're saying, look, we've gotten rid of 5 together, now it's going to be 1 at a time. You'll see other planeswalkers as well, new ones and old ones, tying up loose ends, etc. But what I did not necessarily expect, although I think we talked about it briefly, but I didn't expect it to this extent. What I did not necessarily expect was that they would use this opportunity to change Jace's personality so much. Again, definitely not a complaint from me, but an outright, cheer from Amy.
Yes.
Because, and this is his words and or R&D's words, or the narrative team's words, not my own, but he went from, in his own recognition, being bored and introspective all the time to being present, alert, and comfortable. Now, what did you see in this story with his interactions with Vraska that you liked as a kind of a change of pace for Jace?
In relation to that?
Just in general, you were commenting on that their dialogue was actually interesting now, as specifically from Jace.
Well, it wasn't so much the dialogue. It was just this story was interesting because it kind of went a lot of different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting his memories back took us to a lot of different places,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave us a lot of important information, a lot of interesting sort of fun stuff, a lot of ways in which he is more self-aware, a lot of ways in which he realizes that his relationship with Vraska is a lot healthier than his relationship with Liliana.
Oh yeah.
And that's a lot of different things going on from, a limited number of words and sentences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this story was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Because we learned a lot about just everything.
But if I recall correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you also made a comment about some of their discussion actually being funny this time.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
sometimes it is.
Yeah. But that I feel like was a welcome surprise for you.
Okay, yeah.
So Then we get to Azor, right? I don't have a ton to say about Azor. There's a lot more that we're going to have to get to.
Yeah.
But I will, call it out. You guys should, if you're hardcore Vorthos, go on Twitter. A lot of these people today, I should say, have been saying like, holy crap, look who predicted it. Azor, Ugin, Azorius, all that stuff. Like, that was a big discussion among Vorthoses, if you will.
Vorthai.
I don't think that's it at all. leading up to these stories, the reveal of Azor as a card in general, the fact that he was the Perun, the old leader of the Azorius on Ravnica, the creator of the original Guild Pact, etc. And the story basically ends with Jace revealing himself as the living Guild Pact to the man, the Sphinx, who created said Guild Pact in the first place. And so now... Yes, right. And then he says, no, I'm a pirate. And so now, which was a little lame. A little lame. A little bit. But we will get to see where that leads now. The only thing I wanted to end on was something that I do, like hot takes every once in a while, or tinfoil hat conspiracy theories or thoughts or through lines that I've noticed. And something that caught my eye today was one of Jace's memories about his mother caught my eye when I was reading it. He mentions that he remembers his mother coming home from a long day of work, and she removed her healer's smock, or whatever it was that he described that she was wearing, the outfit of a healer. Who else that Jace has been, I don't know, kind of close
Pining
with,
over forever?
is not currently by any means, but was at one time a healer. And so someone that Jace might be even subconsciously gravitating towards because it is what he knows in having grown up with his mother. That's Liliana. Liliana, if you look at the flip Liliana from Magic Origins, she was Liliana, heretical healer, and then she became a necromancer through all the other, go read those stories. But that was very clear to me. Jace was like, I like remembering my mother. And it's like, yeah, you also like spending time with Liliana because you might see a thread of what she used to be in her that draws you to her. And that was something that maybe everybody else realized it last week when Jace mentioned it, when it was mentioned for the first time, kind of his mother as a healer or someone who takes care of people. But that kind of glaringly stood out to me this week, was that her being a healer kind of mirrors very nicely Liliana having been a healer, and that if any of that was poking through, that could be something that Jace might be latching onto with his affection for Liliana in all of their interactions together.
Okay.
Do you think that's crazy? Do you think it's plausible?
I think it's plausible.
We'll see. What do you guys think? As always, about that and really anything that we talked about in this video, please let us know in the comments down below. There was some nice discussion last week as well, which we really appreciated. So keep it coming. We love reading the comments. We love responding to them if we feel that they need responses and having a discussion.
Yes, I love doing that.
Yes, exactly. So please feel free to do so.
And I have a ton to say about the new Jace because he's so wonderful. So
let us know. Do you think that it was enough? Do you think that new Jace seems cool so far? Or are you like, nope, still not good. I don't want to see him a million times. Get rid of Mickey Mouse.
Oh, he's totally fucking cool. So if you don't like him, then you're just wrong.
But feel free to kindly, because it will be kindly debate Amy about it in the comments.
Yes,
because it would...
If you don't think he's cool, I would love to know why.
Yeah.
Because I don't see it that way.
Well, we'll ask her to be nice.
Yeah.
But, guys, this has been another episode of JAR on Geek for All. I want to thank you guys so much for watching.
Yes,
hopefully,
thank you so much.
yes, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to us, and by doing so, you are joining us in showing off our
#Vorthos Pride.
every time. So, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. you should definitely check out our channel,
Yes.
right? That's a thing that we do. These are not the only videos we put out. We have these videos every Thursday, but we do 3 videos a week. So every Saturday, we have me drafting on Magic Online. I'm going to crack into some Rivals of Ixalan. Wish me luck, because Ixalan was not good for me. And every Monday, we have paper Magic openings. We're going to be doing our best to get some booster boxes up and things like that of Rivals, and we'll see what we can do from there. If you missed it, I was at the pre-release this past weekend. We had a sponsor, and we opened some pre-release kits, 4 of them to be exact, and they were damn good. So I definitely recommend that you go check that out as well. That might be popping up on the screen at some point. Our logo will be up here. If you click that, you can subscribe. You'll find out when all of our videos come out. If you're aware of the recent YouTube changes, subscribing really helps out channels these days. So please feel free to do so, but only do so if you are interested in our content. We're not asking you to do it unless you are. If you want to see the stuff that we do, that's the best way to help us out and to inform you of when they come out. So, thank you guys once again for watching. Like I said, this has been JaAR on Geek for All. I have been Joe.
And I'm Mimi.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.